year, then that's the kind of thing that can go everywhere. And there were people here who thought it would never happen, right on to Topanga Canyon. But it's those type of things. I talk to people from the gutter to the mansions in the course of a day's time. I say the same thing to the guys in the gutter that I say to the people in the mansions, and they all agree. Yet they won't agree with each other. It's the damnedest thing. And I am a true practicing sociology. All right, I did 2 years at Laney College, big deal. That was because people like to see paper. But my whole life has been looking at things because there were things I just didn't understand. I couldn't understand how somebody can hate somebody. You punch me upside the head and then you walking around hating me. I never could understand how someone can hate someone who have never done nothing to them. I mean, are you hating them because they didn't do bad to you? Why are you hating them? It seemed like it should be a flip-flop situation. It seemed like the script should be flipped. So I've always wondered about that hate. And I've found a lot out about that hate. And someday I hope I'm fortunate enough to put it in paper, put it somewhere where folks can pay attention to it so we can cut that hate crap out. Because it's not really hate. It's like the difference between contradictory and being contrary. It's a big difference. A lot of people think that someone is contradictory to them just because they might disagree. But no, they probably disagreed with one word that you used in your presentation. And that makes them contrary because they are not against your ideas, they are against the way you said it. So we have to constantly go back to Webster. We need to start, we got to not redefine, we have to define our words, the words that the English language, the American language have laid out for us, because words are flipped. They use the definition of a liberal, they describe the conservative. I said, somebody have not went to school. I know they've gotten in high places, but you got to remember about high places. In America, all Americans, our founding fathers of this country, they didn't care about people in high places. People in high places were always the lower ones, low lifes, if you may. And a low life, so you understand Webster's definition, is someone who has a low opinion of somebody else's life. It has nothing to do with their economical status. If you got a low opinion of somebody else's life, you are a low life. And it's just that simple. That's what I want to see done. I would like to see functional definitions again being brought back into our society before we really go backwards and we won't be able to reverse our course. We need functional definitions, words that mean that compares with the action. You got to understand, practice is the criterion of the truth. If in fact you say you're gonna be a flyer and you never leave the ground, you are not a flyer. It's just that simple. We don't believe in kings and queens here. I know there's a lot of people, because they've been so confused by Satan, they've been so confused that they're afraid. They want to follow somebody. Case in point, why follow a Judas goat? Did I say Judas goat? Yes, Judas goat. What's a Judas goat? A Judas goat is the goat that they takes you up to as a pen. If you've never seen it, how they do it, this is a slaughterhouse, folks. There's the goat. The sheep been used to following this goat forever. Consequently, it's time for the sheep to be slaughtered. It's time for the sheep to get them big good lamb chops and everything out. So what happens? The old goat put his bell on, they follow the bell. They so used to that bell leading them to food. So they take them up, they go up this ramp. The goat is walking up the ramp, the sheep are following, walking up the ramp, then the door on the left opens, closes. You can still hear the bell. Then the door on the right opens, still hear the bell in front of them. The sheep just keep going forward, going to the food, and they'll walk into the slaughter because they followed that goat. They followed that goat because for some reason they thought it was a good idea to follow that goat. To tell you the truth, the only relationship they had with that goat was the fact that he led them to the food. Don't follow a Judas goat. A Judas goat is a liar. A Judas goat is someone who has no respect for other people's lives. A Judas goat is someone who really believes that he is better than all the rest. That's why he chose himself to be the leader. So it's so easy for us to do what we need to do. All we need to do is let's go back to Webster and stop listening to what all these people on television who have dramatized the news. Man, you ain't got to dramatize the news. I get emails, I get papers from all over this country and all over the world, and they got stuff going on out there. You don't need no drama. So when you dramatize things, you tend to fictionalize it also. And we don't need that with the news. So it's a lot of stuff all tied in, all hung in, and we're gonna have to find all you new people who are just finding out about deregulation. Then I ask you to go back into the 80s and look for deregulation and see where it started from, and you'll find nobody had salmonella poison, E. coli poison, all this listeria, all these diseases that we're having now, folk. Very simple. Y'all can thank y'all good, great guy, Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan and George Bush, #1. They created deregulation, and everybody, that sounds good. If you listen to the word deregulation, you feel like that means Jubilee. I'm going to go out on the street and be free. That's how they trick people with the words. Deregulation, when they deregulated the corporates, they deregulated business. That meant simply, like if business put out a bad product, it's up to the business, not the government, to say we'll recall it. That's why you've noticed they always say the company made a volunteer recall. How you gonna be a volunteer recall and you killing people? That ain't no volunteer recall. That's a must. That's a straight up must. But we should never ever turn the controls. Nobody should have turned the controls of the American people over to other people. And as a result, all of our stuff, all of our food supplies, our water supplies, everything now is truly contaminated. It is. It's truly contaminated. I take 9 meds a day. I looked at my hand. I said, I got 9. What the hell am I taking 9 medications from when I've been healthy all my life? Well, I guess when you got all that stuff coming out your meat when you cook it, when you got all that stuff coming out your fish when you cook it, when you got all that stuff coming out of anything, your water when you cook it, I mean, you will find, folk, that the only way to get this country back on track is to put regulations. Ronald Reagan, he deregulated all of our offices. The FDA, which was a serious one, Food and Drug Administration, all these guys took a powder. You might have about 4 or 5 guys in those national agencies because they told them to stand down. All the products we have here in this country are really no good. And not only that, we've had people like Bill Clinton who sold us out with NAFTA, and we have this new guy in there now. George Bush, #1, and Reagan, the sleeper. I don't know if people don't remember him, huh? Won't y'all look back through the LA Times and some of those papers back in the 80s and watch how the press and the whole country talked about this guy. I don't know how he became such a hero, but I know how they revise history. They just do it by lying. By lying. I have a personal thing with him and his deregulation, but this deregulation was not deregulating people. It deregulated the government controls over good quality products. As a result, we got screwed. We have stuff coming in from China that's not even inspected at all by Americans at all. You know when Americans inspect it? When they put it in their body, when they use it on their shoes, when they use it in their hair, or when they use it when they feed their animals. That's when they use it. That brings me back to a time in my life when I actually had a mental breakdown. I didn't know what it was. I was afraid. And my culture, Afro-American Indian culture, you don't have breakdowns. If Junior's got a problem, you put Junior in the back in the potato shack until the guests leave, and then you bring old Junior out. That was the worst thing you can do, was to accept the fact that you're not in control. Well, a situation happened that some of you might remember, and it happened with the Pentagon scandal when they was paying $200 and $300 for a hammer, the same amount of money for a screwdriver. They were just doing outrageous, crazy stuff. Well, at the time, Jimmy Carter was the president. Jimmy Carter said, the only thing that I can do, because Congress was not doing nothing to help. They liked it like that, because they was getting paid. Jimmy Carter decided that the only thing that he can do to stop this the graft in the government and all that, was to have, he passed an executive order. It was like an aerospace snitch law, where people who worked in aerospace, if in fact you can prove graft in your company with the government contracts, then you will be paid $10,000 cash money, non-tax, cash money, and you'll be able to keep your job. Well, myself and a guy at Lockheed, another dude I knew at Northrop, I was the traffic manager in the aerospace industry because I was going crazy with our shipping procedures. When you think of a government inspector, he do not come back and inspect parts. He inspects shipping documents after the part's been shipped. I personally have shipped parts, and this has been killing me for years. Every time a sea stallion went down, I went crazy because we did hydraulic fittings. That was our main thing, and that's how helicopters and most planes are made. That's what they fly on, hydraulics. When we was decided that we was going to say something about it, if we got bad parts from General Dynamics, we would take those parts from General Dynamics and put them in the government pile. The government pile was set up so when my team, I had about 13 people in my department. If somebody wasn't busy doing inventory, I have them working on the government orders, packaging them up and getting them ready to ship out. If I got a rejection from General Dynamics, I would put it in the government pile. We would take those parts, ship those parts to the Oakland Naval Shipyard. 2 days later, the government inspector would come by and inspect my shipping documents, and he would go up to the front office and write it's okay to pay to the owner of the company. And that was the inspections. So those parts were put on planes, they was put on tanks, they was put on helicopters, and I like to went crazy. And we had decided we was going to do something about it. Ronald Reagan got in office, and within the first month, some people said within the first week. It's all in the newspapers because all this is right there in public view. Within that first few days of that man's office, he canceled Jimmy Carter's snitch law. Consequently, business went on as usual. So every time an airplane go down, I still feel a gut. People have asked me a lot. It's all over the country. A lot of different people have it. I sent the information to a lot of different folks. I didn't want them to release it in the press because I told them I wanted to see my grandkids grow up. That's the God's truth. That's why when folks ask me, I've had people from the press ask me, well, why haven't you went forward with this? And I said, well, put a polygraph on me. I ain't got to lie. Go back and research the LA Times and all the other major newspapers, and you'll see what I'm saying is true. This man stopped something that could have been, we could have stopped bad parts going to the military, but this guy canceled that executive order because only the prayers could have done it. He canceled that executive order, that snitch law, so business went on as usual. So the graft continued on, and our soldiers were getting inferior parts. People ask me, why didn't you tell? Tell who? This is the president, man. I have been around them. I've been around certain things dealing with the government enough to know that things can get really crazy when you tell them the truth. And that, my brothers and sisters, is probably the first time you'll probably ever hear this. But it's God's truth. Check me out. Everything I'm saying is the gospel. And I'm glad I had a chance to say that because it's kind of like I feel like I'm getting it off my chest in a minute. But every time a sea stallion go down, I thought about Ronald Reagan and also his whole handling of the mental health crisis in America. How he closed down the mental health facilities in LA County. You think about how all these people doing all these weird things. That's been over a generation and a half ago. Think about it. You had people who were not balanced. Those people went out and hooked up with other people who weren't balanced. They had children, and now their children are unbalanced. All these things that are happening now would not have been happening if we had proper mental health facilities around our country. This was another thing this guy that everybody thinks was so great, Mr. Reagan, was involved in. That's why when it was found out that Mr. Reagan was going crazy, that was like, in the area I was in, that was like a hoorah, because people said he's reaping what he sowed. He's reaping what he sowed. There's a lie about the Berlin Wall. He had nothing to do with the Berlin Wall coming down. That was just a speech that they put in there. The Berlin Wall came down after he was gone and somewhere else. But the bottom line is, folks,